and welcome to the Wellness with Juanita podcast. I'm your host, Juanita Nagai, an American living in Japan for 20 years. I've gone through some massive life changes and crises in my 20 years here. At its bleakest, I felt very isolated, alone, and helpless in the face of what was happening. I relied on alcohol and cigarettes to get through it the best I knew how, which worked until it didn't, and everything fell apart. I made it through with a little help from my friends, a fledgling mindfulness practice, and learning how to become my own strongest ally. I quit drinking and smoking, worked my way through my grief, found ways to forgive, created new connections, and started a regular exercise, meditation, and self-care routine. I've also become a national board certified health and wellness coach along the way, and developed a desire and passion to help others on their own personal journeys. This podcast is all about change, growth, healing yourself, learning how to get back up after life kicks you down, and exploring mindfulness and self-compassion as incredible tools available to each and every one of us to do just that. Hello, and welcome to the Wellness with Juanita podcast. I'm your host, Juanita Nagai. And today I am going to be taking a look back, as this podcast will air on January 1st. It is traditionally the time to look forward, set New Year's resolutions, think about our goals and our hopes and desires and dreams for the new year, which is all very, very wonderful and good to do. And of course, right up my alley as a health and wellness coach. However, I do believe that it's really important for us to also reflect and look back before we look ahead, so that we can look at the basis of where we are starting from, and we can congratulate ourselves and give ourselves the pat on the back that we most definitely deserve, to think of how far we have come and how far we have progressed on our path. And just to take a look at our accomplishments and our achievements. I think that's something that we so very often kind of forget to do, or maybe are not very conditioned to do. And it really is so important to realize that we are making progress. We are moving ahead, even if that is not completely linear, even if it's sometimes, 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, but we are moving along our path. And thinking of the kind of 2 steps forward and 1 step or 3 steps back phenomenon, we also need to think about how we are doing our best in the very real life and real life circumstances and situations that we find ourselves in. I think this can be another area where we kind of get caught up. Maybe we don't like our job, or maybe we think that various aspects of our life, our relationships or our finances, or even our health and well-being, like we feel like things should be better, or things should be different, or we're only this far when we really would like to be this far. But that is why it is important to think about how much we are achieving and what we are actually accomplishing, and how far we have come given real life and the real life challenges and struggles and hiccups and the curveballs that come our way. Case in point, I was hoping to record this very podcast much earlier this month. However, I just lost an entire week staying at home with a very sick little boy. And looking back now that he is on the mend, I hope, and the fever has broke, I realized that I was resisting that pretty hard. I had this fixed idea of, this is my last week of work before the holidays, so I have this and this and this thing that I want to do in my professional life and in my private life, all of these kind of boxes that I had lined up that needed to be ticked. And all of that really just had to kind of get thrown out the window. Luckily, I have this flexible position that I have created for myself, and I was able to reschedule or work things around. It wasn't like a massive financial hit, as it can be for some of us. But sickness happens, and little boys need their mommies when they don't feel good. And I feel like if I had just kind of accepted that that was what was happening, that no, he is just simply very, very sick and miserable, and I need to just let everything go and kind of accept what was really happening, I could have saved myself a bit of internal pressure and struggle, because I found myself trying to work on things that I was trying to get done, but out of necessity, in a kind of half-hearted way, because of course I'm trying to also take care of my son. So I didn't feel like I was doing a very good job at any of the things that I was kind of halfway doing. And then I was also worried about him and split into different directions. And if I had just kind of taken that step back and said, this is what's happening, this is the curveball I've been thrown, I need to just let it go and watch Spider-Man cartoons and make Christmas cookies and just kind of let the work stuff go, I probably could have saved myself quite a bit of internal struggle. So I think so often it's that resistance to what is our actual reality, what really is happening. The more we resist it, the more we cause ourselves to suffer. But getting back to the idea of looking back and looking at our accomplishments and our achievements, I think another reason that this is really important, and something I kind of touched on a bit briefly earlier, is that it's so easy to forget how far we have come or how much we have accomplished. And this is why things like tracking, keeping track of our progress, whether that be journaling or apps or even little notebooks or sticker charts, whatever works for you, but keeping track and then finding the time for reflection and looking back later can really be so, so very valuable, and it can provide so many insights. I have been keeping rather good track in my journal in the past couple of years. And so I was able to look back at where I was a year ago and kind of flip through the pages and not only see what my New Year's resolutions and goals were for last year, and to be really rather pleasantly surprised at how many I was able to achieve and accomplish, because I had honestly simply forgotten that I had set them. And I do remember that I also thought to check in with myself at the halfway point of the year around July 1st. So that was also very helpful to kind of see, well, this is how far I wanted to go and where am I at the midway point. And now, looking back a full year later, I can say, wow, I was able to take not only the one class that I was hoping to take, but I took another course, both of which completely blew my mind. And I received just so much wisdom and insights into my own personal path and my own personal journey, but so much rich, meaningful, really fundamentally important kind of truths that I feel like I'm bringing into not only my own life, but my relationships with other people, of course, my relationships and my work with my clients. But both of those classes were just so very, very dear to me and really, really hugely beneficial, I feel. I was able to study and not only pass, but pass with flying colors my National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach exam in March. Yeah, that was March 11th. I just remember looking at my diary that first part of the year was just study, 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 focus so hard and concentrating to really do my best and hopefully receive that accreditation and that certification. And I did. And I also feel that that period of study provided me not only the opportunity to make new connections with other coaches in other parts of the world, but also it was such wonderful, phenomenal review to be able to take what I had already learned, but look at it again through the lens of actual, real lived experience and real practice with clients. And I know that it has made me such a much better coach since doing all of that hard, intensive study and reviewing all of these kind of philosophies and modalities and the theory behind the actual work that I am doing. I feel like it's something that definitely has helped all of the clients that I've worked with this year. So I passed my exam. I took 2 classes. I was able to launch this podcast, which was something that I had been thinking about, but kind of hesitating and wasn't really sure if I was ready or brave enough to attempt it. And I think that that was possible because I was able to give myself the time and the space and the opportunity to really reflect and really think about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I am most certainly still figuring it out. This is only, the first handful of episodes into it, but I am having a lot of fun with it. I'm really pleased with how it's turning out a lot of the time. I've gotten some really great feedback from listeners and viewers, so it really encourages me to continue to push on and see where it goes. In the same vein, I was also able to pilot a small group program, and I feel like I've learned a lot from that experience as well. And so I feel like I'm making all of these little steps professionally. I continue to sign clients. I continue to increase my coaching hours, which just brings me more experience and brings me more confidence and brings my clients more, ultimately, a better experience for them as well. So all of these things are just kind of exponentially increasing in a positive way, which is really good to think about and reflect on because, of course, I'm human. And a lot of times and throughout the year, I have felt discouraged or unsure or uncertain or basically just kind of wondering, am I doing the right thing? Or, should I be doing things differently? That's really, really natural, especially when you're trying to start your own business and become an entrepreneur. So there's the professional side of things, but there's also the personal side of my life and my experience in the past year. And I think that more than anything is what kind of inspired me and spurred me on to start thinking about this and to perhaps share about it in a podcast, because little things make such a big difference sometimes. So I have been attempting to do a semi-regular yoga practice as best I can. But again, life happens, and sometimes I'm not able to do it as much as I want to. But I do remember when I was first starting out and I was following along to the lovely and delightful Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, and she would do certain moves, or she would say, so from this position, you just bring your leg all the way up or something like that. And it might be kind of hard to describe on a podcast, but I just remember at the beginning looking over at the TV and thinking to myself, okay, I have no idea how you do that or how people could do that in one fell swoop or one graceful move, because it's taken me like 2 or 3 steps to get the leg up there. But this practice of yoga and stretching your body and being with yourself and kind of accepting what you are capable of and where you're at is also a beautiful metaphor for life in general. And taking those small, consistent steps, continuing to practice my yoga, continuing to stretch my body that little bit more every time that I'm able to do it, a year and a half later, I found myself able to do that move that was so bewildering and so baffling and felt so out of reach when I first started. And for me, it was just that little light bulb moment of, oh yeah, doing those small baby steps over and over is what pushes you further down the path. That's what actually makes the difference. Likewise, reflecting back on my running, which wasn't even a pipe dream. Honestly, I don't think I ever would have thought that I could have become a runner again in my 40s. But my riding on my exercise bike or going for long neighborhood walks kind of has evolved into a pretty regular running practice. I'm going on 5K runs 3 or 4 times a week when I can, when we are healthy and well. And I just never in a million years would have thought I would have been able to do that. Even when I was starting my running practice, like I said, my body was kind of rebelling against that much exertion and that much activity. But I have continued to take the small steps and to keep pushing myself little bit by bit by bit. And that is where I am now. So I have been reflecting and reading and thinking about how small, consistent steps have really led to maybe not hugely profound changes just yet, but they are pushing me further down my path, both professionally and in my physical body with things like running and yoga. And I think mentally and emotionally and almost kind of spiritually, the same thing is happening as I continue to practice things like meditation, as I do continue to read, though not as much as I would like, and write and reflect and listen to interesting podcasts and take those classes that are mind-blowingly amazing and interesting and provide me with so much joy, because I just really do love learning for its own sake. All of those things continue to help me just become who I am becoming. I think all of the things combine to create the future version of Juanita that I am in the process of becoming. And I am really excited to see who that is. And taking the time to look back and to reflect on how far I have come is what I think helps continue to keep up the motivation and the inspiration and the determination to keep coming back to all of it. So as I shared at the beginning of this podcast, I haven't been able to do anything basically for the past week. I certainly haven't been able to go running or do yoga, and I wasn't even able to meditate a few days, which is kind of like shock and gasp for me because it is so vital and so important, and it has become a daily practice for me. I also needed to and was able to give myself the grace that I needed to accept that I'm not able to do all of the things that I want to do, either for myself or for my business or even for my family. I couldn't go shopping, so I couldn't make dinner, so I needed to ask my husband for help. I needed to give myself grace that what I am capable of and able to do right now is to be there for my sick little boy that really needs me. And that is the most important thing right now. And that takes priority and that takes precedence right now. What I also know is that when things are back to normal, probably after the holidays, and hopefully when we are all healthy and well, and children are back to school and husbands are back to work, and I am back to my self-care practices and my business working from home, I will start running again, and I will start doing yoga again. And I will find the time and the space and the opportunities to practice my meditation again. And all of those things are always available to me whenever I am ready and able to go back to them. As one of my very favorite teachers, Sharon Salzberg, shares, we can always begin again. Nothing is ruined, nothing is lost. Just because I wasn't able to go running or do yoga or even meditate every day for the past week doesn't mean that all of those habits and all of those practices are lost to me. I can always begin again. And the same goes for all of us. I think we can get so disheartened and down on ourselves, especially when we are trying to work on change or creating new habits or releasing old ones that no longer serve us. If we aren't able to make some huge, colossal, instant change in our life, we feel like we're failing. We feel like we're not doing it right. We feel like we're not doing things good enough. There are any number of stories that we almost immediately start to tell ourselves about why this isn't happening, or why it can't happen, or why it won't happen. But the simple truth is that we can always begin again. Nothing is ruined, nothing is lost. We just need to remember that fact and come back to it again and again and again. So, for this bonus episode and for this first takeaway of the new year, I encourage you to look back on your 2024. Even if you mentally click back through the calendar months one by one and think about what you were doing or where you were or what was happening throughout each month of the last year, think about where you were and think about where you are now. What have you accomplished? What have you done? Maybe even what have you gone through? Maybe you had just a whole lot of life happening and it doesn't feel like you were able to achieve or accomplish so much. Making it through each day, especially when they're really hard, long, difficult, a lot of life happening days, is also a huge achievement and a huge accomplishment. Learning how to be and live and lessen our resistance to the realities of what we're experiencing, I think, is the heart and soul of what we do as humans. Learning how to be and live in our real existence is all we can do. So I encourage you to look back at your year before you are tempted to look ahead, because I think looking back can really provide such a rich basis to think about where you were, who you want to become, and how you can get there. So as always, I appreciate all comments, feedback, shares, likes of these podcasts and the videos. I also am accepting clients in the new year. So if you are interested in working with a private personal coach that can help you start to integrate new habits, new routines, new strategies into your new year, into who you want to become and how you want to live your life, please do reach out. All of my information is available in the show notes. until next time, I wish you well and take care.